Most people think they know what happens to their money after death. It goes to family, to children, to someone they trust. That's the picture most people have in their head. Clean transfer, clear outcome, no complications. Almost like passing an object from one hand to another. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That's not how it usually works. And what actually happens to your money after you die is far less controlled, far less direct, and far more chaotic. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand the exact system that decides where your money goes, and why, in many cases, it doesn't follow your intentions at all. Let's start with the assumption most people rely on. My money will go to the people I care about. That feels obvious. It feels natural, almost guaranteed. But legally, nothing moves automatically. There is no invisible hand that redirects your money based on your relationships. Bank accounts don't know who you love. Money doesn't recognize emotional bonds. It doesn't understand fairness. It follows rules, strict ones. And here's the first thing most people don't realize. When you die, your money is temporarily frozen. Accounts can be locked, access restricted, transactions paused. Not because something went wrong, but because, from a legal perspective, your ownership has ended. You are no longer an active participant in the system, and now the system takes over. This system has a name, probate. It's the process that decides where everything goes. Not instantly, not smoothly, and definitely not always the way you expected. Think of it as a checkpoint. Everything you owned must pass through it. Think of it like this. Your life was a system you controlled. You made decisions, you moved money, you chose direction. But after death, your finances enter a system you don't. A slower system, a stricter system, a system that requires proof for everything. Now here's where things get interesting. If you have a clear will, your money has a direction. But even then, it's not immediate. Documents must be verified, identities confirmed, instructions interpreted, and sometimes challenged. Time passes. Weeks turn into months, months into years. And during that time, your money is still there, but not really moving. And if there is no will, things change dramatically. Because now, the system doesn't follow your wishes. It follows default rules, predefined, rigid, impersonal, a hierarchy you didn't actively choose. And those rules don't care about your intentions. They care about legal structure. Which leads to something most people don't expect. Your money can go to people you didn't choose, or not go to people you wanted at all. Now let's talk about something even more uncomfortable: debt. Because money doesn't just move one way. When you die, your assets don't go first. Your obligations do. Outstanding loans, credit balances, medical bills, financial commitments you made while alive. They are addressed before inheritance, which means what's left is what gets passed on. And in some cases, there's nothing left at all. Years of accumulation, reduced to zero in the process of settling what came before. Now let's zoom out. Most people imagine death as a single moment, but financially, it's not a moment. It's a process. A slow redistribution of everything you owned, piece by piece, account by account, decision by decision. Bank accounts, investments, property, retirement funds, even things you forgot you had. Everything enters transition. And here's where another layer appears: access. Not all money is easy to reach. Passwords, private accounts, digital wallets, unshared information. If no one knows something exists, it might never be claimed. Not because it isn't there, but because it isn't visible. And this happens more often than people think. Forgotten subscriptions, old accounts, hidden savings, money that technically exists, but practically disappears. Now think about this. You can spend your entire life building something, and after you're gone, parts of it might never be used. Not because they weren't valuable, but because they weren't accessible. Let's talk about behavior for a moment. Not wealth, not income, just habits. Most people delay financial planning. I'll do it later. It's not urgent. I still have time. And that's exactly why the system becomes chaotic later. Because clarity is postponed. Decisions are delayed. Structure is ignored. But unlike life, death doesn't give you time to organize after it happens. There is no second chance to clarify, no final adjustment. Everything that isn't structured beforehand gets decided by something else. And here's the deeper shift most people miss. You don't just own money, you temporarily manage it. Because at some point, control transfers, inevitably, quietly, completely. The question is not if that happens, only how prepared that transfer is. Now let's talk about something subtle: control. While you're alive, you can move money instantly. Spend it, save it, invest it, redirect it. One decision and everything changes. But after death, every action requires permission, verification, approval, legal confirmation. Your money slows down, even if your life didn't. And this creates a strange contrast. The faster you lived financially, the slower everything moves after you're gone. Speed disappears, friction appears. Now here's the paradox. People spend years optimizing income, growing assets, maximizing returns, tracking performance, but almost no one optimizes what happens next: the transfer, the structure, the aftermath. Which means a well-built financial life can still lead to a poorly managed financial ending. And here's the part most people don't think about. You don't experience what happens after. You don't see delays, you don't see confusion, you don't see consequences, which makes it easy to ignore, easy to postpone, easy to forget. But for others, it becomes very real, very practical, very complicated. Now let's flip the perspective. If everything you own will eventually be transferred, then the structure of that transfer matters. Not just the amount, but the clarity, the accessibility, the direction, the simplicity. Because in the end, money doesn't disappear. It moves, always, somewhere. The only question is, does it move the way you intended, or does it move the way the system decides? And that's the real answer to what happens to your money when you die. Not a clean handoff, not a simple transition, but a process, a system, a redistribution. Sometimes smooth, often complicated, always inevitable. And once you see that, you realize something important. You are not just building wealth. You are building what happens after you're gone. Not dramatically, not emotionally, but structurally. And that changes the way you look at money. Not as something you keep, but as something you eventually leave behind. The only thing you truly control is how clear that path is before you do. Subscribe if you like this video and give me your thoughts in the comments.